So John White again with Luke 10, and I am once again with my friends Kent and Cathy Larson. We've done a previous video where they have explained this concept of interactive gratitude, something they've been working on with their church for 3 or 4 years and seen some just amazing things in terms of how God has used that in individuals' lives. But it also has implications for groups, small group, house church, and I wanted them to share a bit about what they've learned, sort of how they do that, and what they've seen the Lord do. Ken, would you just share, first of all, sort of what church are you with and where, and what's your position with the church?
Yeah, we live in Southern California. I'm a associate pastor in a vineyard called Vineyard Community Church, and pastor of pastoral care. So I'm working all the time with shepherding groups, small groups, training, healing, counseling, all that, those kinds of areas. And yeah, so yeah, I've been doing that for 16 years, and loving the people, loving the things that we've been learning, even this, the kind of stuff that we're sharing here today has been really helping some of our people.
Good. Well, it's just been so fun to reconnect and to see that there's so many things in common that we have. I know you guys are real interested in the whole house church idea, and we're very interested in Joyful Journey and what Wilder's doing. So we're real interested to see where the Lord's going to take all this. But talk a little bit about the implications for groups. When a group of people meet together, and some or all of them have been doing interactive gratitude, what's the value of that? And then kind of how do you do it?
Well, first of all, we've seen, working with this for a few years, that it raises the joy quotient, the joy level of any group that you're in. And I think it's really God's heart to raise the joy level of the whole body of Christ. That
Amen.
he just really wants to release this. And the brain science side of this has been fascinating to learn that our nervous system works the best when we're in a rhythm internally between joy and peace, or shalom. And that's when you function the best. That's when your relational circuits are on. That's when things are functioning well. So we're loving the fruit of it physically, emotionally, relationally, and spiritually in our community. It's been really exciting. And so amplifying joy in community is one of the big fruits of it.
Yeah, another thing is that we find it really it helps bond people together in what we call family bonds. And we know that the aspect of spiritual family is exactly what Luke 10 is about in relationship to house churches. And so when people share their interactive journaling with each other out loud, in a group setting, it just blesses the group identity. It has helped us establish a group identity at a deeper level. And I mean, it's similar to just sharing where your heart is at, and all of that, but it has that aspect of joy. And I think when people hear what the Lord is saying to each other out of that place of gratitude and appreciation, it just releases encouragement and hope and joy for each other, because I think we know if the Lord feels that way about the other person, he feels that way about me too. So that's another big aspect to this that we see happen. The other thing that we see happen is when people read their interactive gratitude out loud in a group, it takes what the Lord said to them personally to a new level. It usually touches a deeper place in them emotionally, and it expands sometimes. It's just interesting to see that dynamic happen pretty consistently.
And that's been sort of an unexpected thing. I mean,
think so. Yeah, it's
like
unexpected for the people, but
yeah.
Yeah, for groups too. It's just kind of a delightful, unexpected thing that happens.
Yeah.
Another thing that's been interesting is just to discover that that it kind of creates a joyful, safe environment in order for vulnerability to come out, even about pain. I think oftentimes we can end up, if we're in a small group that's vulnerable, sometimes we can kind of all sink together into dark heaviness of people's pain.
Yeah.
But what this does is it gets us in a place where we're together, we're in a joyful place, and we're in an awareness of the presence of God. It's similar to the worship movement that's gone over the earth, and and it welcomes the presence of God and allows us to be vulnerable in a safe place. Very good.
Seems like there's something about if there's a high level of joy, then it's an environment in which you can then handle and process some of the more difficult emotions. You know, with Sachet we have sad, angry, scared.
Right.
And that was a new insight for me to see that.
Yeah, definitely.
So talk a little bit more about how you would actually do this. So a group meets together, and how do you go about sharing these kinds of things?
Well, yeah. So it's very simple. There's probably two or three, probably more than we've experimented with, but two or three ways that it can be done. The simplest way is simply if people are doing interactive gratitude journaling during the week, they can just bring their journals to the group, and then as you gather together and sit down and begin to share, you can simply go around the circle and have people read one of their interactive gratitudes. And we're finding that it's very meaningful. And as you go around the circle, it kind of gets deeper. It begins to touch people's emotions, and it opens up that what we just talked about, that vulnerability that is a joyful vulnerability.
And then another way that we've also experimented with is actually, and I know that many of the Luke 10 groups do this, is that you actually do it together in the group. So something about doing it in the context of a group is often different for people, and if they're struggling doing it alone, setting aside 10 or 15 minutes within the context of the group and saying, okay, we're going to do this together right now, and then read out loud, either in twos or threes or as a whole group. In fact, I just did that yesterday in our ministry school with a group of women. We took a few minutes, we did it together, they read it together in pairs, and then I asked for a couple of people to read theirs out loud to the whole group. And it was very meaningful, and people were touched just in that short period of time.
You said
we
that
actually have found that doing that, there's a kind of a shame dynamic that can happen in any group over the years. We've experienced where there's an assignment, a book reading assignment, or there's a discipline or whatever, and maybe some of the people in the group just can't put that together. They can't get that done in the week, and then they feel like they're out of it. They're not really accepted. So to actually give them a chance to do it right there and then have something to share, it brings those people that weren't able to do it this week into the family in one sense, and makes them feel welcome.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, two things occur to me. One is, in Luke 10, we talk about fulfilling the Great Commission by seeing a vibrant family of Jesus within easy access of every person. Right. And I think this is going to be a great tool to increase that sense of vibrancy. With the word, I've looked it up, and it literally means pulsing with life. And I think this is going to really move us in that direction. So I'm excited about that. And then I think another aspect is that as people are practicing this, experimenting, a big word in Luke 10, experimenting with this, that in the leader teams will be a great opportunity for people to talk about, what are you seeing? What are you learning? And so that it's an ongoing learning kind of an environment. I suspect that's been true for you guys as you've been teaching this to people for 3 or 4 years. Right. It's been a learning environment for everyone.
Yeah, and definitely even the one of your disciplines of, okay, what is God saying to the church? What we're finding that is even in this simple interaction, when we're sharing in a group and people are sharing what God spoke back to them, even without intentionally asking the question, what's God saying to the church? He's speaking to the church, and oftentimes a whole message, in a sense, from the Lord will come by simply sharing the interactions that are happening with the individual hearts of people. And it's been fun. We just had an experience with that the other day, where there was a theme that came out all about the Father's love, and everybody had different little pieces of the Father's love, and it was obvious that God was not just speaking to the individuals, but he was speaking to us as a group about the importance of the father-love encounter, and it was very cool, very, very helpful.
What a concept. Jesus speaking to his church, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, what a concept.
Hey, we didn't plan this, but would you guys each, I'd love it if you would just, as you've kind of been getting to know something of Luke 10 and what we're about, if you could share something that encourages you or draws you about what you see with the Luke 10 community. Anything come to mind along that line?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are very encouraging in connecting with the Luke 10 vision. And I would say that one of the things is just the simplicity of the training process that we're working with right here. For me, I think I tend to be a big reader, love lots of concepts, lots of information, lots of teaching, and so I've been a little complicated over the years, and I'm finding that
Did Cathy say amen there? I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm finding the Luke 10 training process, even Church 101, has been really helpful for me to rethink how I train the people that I'm working with, and and how to summarize things down into something that's easy to digest, easy to begin to develop a habit over, or a skill, or a discipline. So that's one thing that's been very good, and also I think just the vision for the Luke 10 to be prayer, praying for the laborers, and the whole vision of the simplicity of just finding two people and encouraging them. That's all of that stuff is transforming the way I'm looking at my ministry right now. I'm in a whole shift right now in the way I think along that line.
Well, I think the simplicity was what I was going to share too. I appreciate that. It makes it so doable in any context. We're in not a mega church. We're in a church of about 2,000.
About 1,000.
Oh, sorry, about 1,000 adults. I lose track. And there's just trying to apply what we're learning in Luke 10 in our context has been, I think, exciting, encouraging, and very doable. And we're constantly passing on to people this idea of the CO2 partners, encouraging everyone we know to think about that. And it's the feedback we're getting about that simple thing is transforming people. It's even for me, because I find in the role that I play, I do a lot of group things, but I don't have that many individual people that I'm consistently relating to. And so it's been encouraging for me to feel more connected to people instead of connection with people being just about ministry. It really is a heart to heart. It really is, walking out this connection with the Lord on a daily basis. And so passing that on just to an ever widening circle of people that we interact with in our church setting has been phenomenal. So we're always talking about it and been very encouraged.
Yeah, I had a cool experience. Yesterday I had lunch with a guy at our men's retreat who's been leading a group. We call them 545 groups, and I won't explain all that. But anyway,
men's groups.
They're men's groups, and but he was pretty discouraged. He was giving up kind of on this group because the guys hadn't been coming and all that. And so I was sharing with him the concept of CO2, and even praying the Luke 10b prayer, 2b prayer. And he brightened up like, oh wow, that's simple. I could do that. I could find one buddy and we could pray. And it actually made him think, I guess I won't give up after all. I think I'm going after it. So that was a really great application immediately to a situation here in our community.
No, that is thrilling. We sometimes call it simple church, and we say a way of doing church that any believer could say, well, I could do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
good.
Well, I'm. You guys are such an answer to prayer. Most of what we've done so far has been with people that are outside of the traditional church, and we felt like the Lord's been saying to us for a while that that he had some things that he wanted to do with inside traditional churches. And it was just so surprising to find out that you guys were the answer to that. And we had all this history, and
surprising to us too.
Yeah.
so it just feels like a real mutual kind of thing. Like we're going to learn a lot from you guys, and maybe we can share some things with you. And so I'm excited about as we move forward here. So thank you for taking the time to do this, and we'll let you know what we're learning as we go.
Okay, you're
Thank
welcome.
you, John.